I've always loved carnivals. The flashing lights, the smell of cotton candy, and the excited chatter of families enjoying themselves. That night, I decided to take a solo trip to the traveling carnival that had set up on the outskirts of town. As I wandered through the fairgrounds, the Ferris wheel caught my eye. Its massive structure loomed against the darkening sky, beckoning me with its colorful lights. I approached the ticket booth, handing over a few crumpled bills to the attendant. His eyes seemed to linger on me a moment too long, but I brushed it off as my imagination. As I climbed into the carriage, I noticed I was the only passenger. Perfect, I thought. A peaceful ride to end the night. The wheel creaked to life, and I began my ascent. The carnival grew smaller below me, and a cool breeze rustled my hair. I closed my eyes, enjoying the gentle sway of the carriage. But as I neared the top, the wheel jerked to a sudden stop. My eyes snapped open, my heart racing. I peered over the edge, expecting to see concerned workers rushing to fix the problem. Instead, what I saw made my blood run cold. The carnival workers were gathering in a circle below, their faces hidden beneath hoods. They moved with an eerie synchronization, forming intricate patterns on the ground. Candles flickered to life around them, casting long, dancing shadows across the fairgrounds. My breath caught in my throat as I realized this was no ordinary carnival, and I was trapped high above, helpless to escape. Panic gripped me as I watched the scene unfold below. The hooded figures began chanting in a language I couldn't understand, their voices rising in an unsettling crescendo. I fumbled for my phone, desperate to call for help, but found no signal. The carnival's cheerful music had faded, replaced by an oppressive silence broken only by the cultists chanting. I tried to remain calm, convincing myself this was all an elaborate prank. But as one of the figures produced a wicked-looking dagger that glinted in the candlelight, I knew this was terrifyingly real. They began drawing symbols on the ground with a dark, viscous liquid that I prayed wasn't blood. Suddenly, the leader of the group looked up, pointing directly at me. I ducked down in the carriage, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. When I dared to peek again, I saw them dispersing, heading towards the base of the Ferris wheel. Terror coursed through me as I realized their intentions. I was to be their sacrifice. I searched frantically for a way out of the carriage, but it was securely locked. The wheel groaned back to life, slowly lowering me towards the waiting cultists. With each rotation, their eager faces became clearer, their eyes gleaming with dark anticipation. I was trapped in a nightmare, descending into the hands of those who meant me harm. As the wheel brought me closer to the ground, I desperately tried to formulate a plan. The carnival, once filled with joyful families, now stood eerily empty. Had everyone else been lured away, or worse? I shuddered at the thought. When my carriage was just a few feet from the bottom, the wheel stopped again. The cultists surrounded me, their faces hidden in the shadows of their hoods. The leader stepped forward, lowering his hood to reveal a face covered in intricate, swirling tattoos. His eyes were pitch black, devoid of any humanity. "Welcome, chosen one," he said, his voice unnaturally deep. "You have been selected for a great honor." I found my voice, trying to sound braver than I felt. "What do you want from me?" He smiled, a chilling sight that made my skin crawl. "Your essence, of course. It will fuel our ascension." As he spoke, two cultists moved to unlock my carriage. I knew I had seconds to act. Adrenaline surging through my veins, I made a split-second decision. The moment the door swung open, I lunged forward, catching them by surprise. I managed to slip between them, my feet hitting the ground running. I sprinted through the carnival, weaving between stalls and rides. Behind me, I could hear shouts and the sound of pursuit. The once cheerful attractions now loomed like monstrous shadows, threatening to swallow me whole. I ran harder than I ever had in my life, knowing that capture meant certain death. My lungs burned as I raced through the maze-like carnival. The cultists were closing in, their chanting growing louder. I ducked behind a funhouse mirror, trying to catch my breath and think. The distorted reflections seemed to mock me, twisting my terrified expression into grotesque shapes. Suddenly, an idea struck me. I remembered passing the control booth for the carnival's lighting and sound systems earlier. If I could reach it, maybe I could create a diversion. With renewed determination, I set off again, keeping to the shadows. I could hear the cultists spreading out, searching methodically. Their leader's voice rang out. You cannot escape your destiny, chosen one. Embrace the honor bestowed upon you. His words sent chills down my spine, spurring me to move faster. Finally, I spotted the control booth. Slipping inside, I frantically scanned the array of switches and buttons. Without hesitation, I began flipping them on. The carnival burst to life around me. Rides whirred into motion, their lights blazing. The speakers blared cheerful music at full volume. I hoped the chaos would buy me some time and cover the sound of my escape. As I slipped out of the booth, I caught sight of the cultists. They were clearly disoriented, shouting to each other over the noise. Taking advantage of their confusion, I made a dash for the carnival entrance. Freedom was so close, I could taste it. But just as I thought I might make it, a hand grabbed my arm, yanking me backwards. I turned to face my captor, my heart sinking as I recognized the tattooed face of the cult leader. His grip was like iron as he pulled me close, his black eyes boring into mine. Did you really think you could outwit us? He snarled over the blaring carnival music. I struggled against him, but his strength was inhuman. The other cultists were closing in, forming a tight circle around us. My mind raced, searching for any way out of this nightmare. Suddenly, a bright light swept over us. The cult leader's head snapped up, momentarily distracted. I heard a voice through a megaphone. This is the police! Everyone stay where you are! Relief flooded through me as I saw police cars at the carnival entrance, their sirens adding to the cacophony. The cultists scattered like cockroaches, disappearing into the shadows of the rides and stalls. The leader's grip on my arm loosened for just a moment, but it was enough. I wrenched free and ran towards the police, my legs feeling like jelly. As an officer rushed forward to meet me, I risked a glance back. The cult leader stood alone, his face contorted with rage. For a terrifying moment, his eyes met mine, and I knew this wasn't over. I collapsed into the officer's arms, babbling about cults and rituals. In the chaos that followed, with police searching the grounds and paramedics checking me over, the full weight of what I'd experienced hit me. I was safe, for now, but the memory of those black eyes and the chilling words, "Chosen One," haunted me. As I was led away from the carnival, its lights now harsh and garish in the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in the shadows, they were watching, waiting for another chance to complete their sinister ritual. I've always loved carnivals, but I never expected to stumble upon one that would change my life forever. It was a crisp autumn night when I first saw the flickering lights in the distance, beckoning me like a moth to a flame. The Carnival of Shadows, the weathered sign read, its paint peeling and faded. As I approached, the air grew thick with the scent of cotton candy and popcorn, but there was something else, a lingering odor I couldn't quite place. The entrance was unmanned, so I slipped inside, my curiosity getting the better of me. The fairgrounds were a spectacle of color and sound, but strangely empty of other visitors. I wandered past rows of game booths, each one manned by a figure shrouded in darkness. Their faces were obscured, but I could feel their eyes following my every move. I stopped at a ring toss, where the attendant's hands seemed to phase through the bottles as he set them up. "Step right up," he rasped, his voice like sandpaper on stone. When I hesitated, he leaned forward, and for a moment, I swear I saw right through him. That's when it hit me. These weren't people at all. They were living shadows, their forms shifting and swirling like smoke. My heart began to race as I realized I might have made a terrible mistake coming here. I tried to stay calm, telling myself it was all part of the show. But as I moved deeper into the carnival, the unsettling reality became impossible to ignore. The Ferris wheel creaked ominously, its seats occupied by wispy, translucent figures. Their hollow laughter echoed across the ground, sending chills down my spine. At the funhouse, I caught my reflection in a warped mirror. For a split second, my own shadow seemed to separate from me, grinning maliciously before snapping back into place. I blinked hard, convinced I was seeing things. That's when I overheard two shadow figures talking in hushed tones. "Another soul for the harvest," one hissed gleefully. "The master will be pleased." Panic set in as I realized the true nature of this carnival. These weren't just harmless apparitions, they were soul-sucking entities, and I was their latest target. I had to get out, and fast. I turned to leave, but the exit I'd come through had vanished, replaced by an endless sea of tents and attractions. The shadows seemed to be closing in, their forms growing more solid as they fed on the fear radiating from me. I ducked into a nearby tent, hoping to catch my breath and formulate a plan. Inside, I found myself face to face with a fortune teller, her features obscured by a heavy veil. "I've been expecting you," she said, her voice surprisingly human. "You seek escape, but the carnival has already marked you. There's only one way out now." The fortune teller's words sent a chill through me, but I clung to the hope she offered. "What do I need to do?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She reached into her robes and produced a small, ornate mirror. "This will be your weapon and your shield," she explained. "The shadows cannot bear to see their true selves. Use it wisely, and you may yet survive the night." As I took the mirror, her form flickered, revealing a glimpse of a trapped human soul beneath the shadowy exterior. I realized then that she, too, had once been a visitor to this cursed carnival. Armed with the mirror, I stepped back out into the chaos. The carnival had transformed into a nightmarish landscape. The merry-go-round spun at impossible speeds, its painted horses replaced by writhing shadow beasts. The cotton candy machine spewed dark, wispy threads that seemed to reach out hungrily. I clutched the mirror tightly as I navigated through the madness. When a shadow figure lunged at me, I instinctively held up the mirror. The creature recoiled with an otherworldly shriek, its form dissipating like smoke in the wind. Emboldened, I pressed on, using the mirror to carve a path through the hordes of shadows. But with each entity I banished, the others grew more frenzied. They called to each other in a language that hurt my ears, coordinating their efforts to corner me. As I rounded a bend, I found myself face to face with the ringmaster, a towering figure of pure darkness, his eyes glowing with malevolent red light. "Your soul is ours," he boomed, reaching for me with elongated clawed hands. I raised the mirror in desperation, but the ringmaster merely laughed, the sound reverberating through my very bones. "Your trinket cannot harm me, mortal," he sneered, swatting the mirror from my grasp. It shattered on the ground, and with it, my last hope of escape. The ringmaster loomed over me, his form expanding to blot out the sky. I could feel the cold tendrils of his essence wrapping around my ankles, slowly creeping up my body. My vision began to darken at the edges as I felt my very life force being drained away. In that moment of despair, a memory flashed through my mind, the fortune teller's words, "The carnival has already marked you." I looked down at my hands and saw a faint, shimmering symbol etched into my palm. Without thinking, I pressed it against the ringmaster's chest. A blinding light erupted from the point of contact. The ringmaster howled in agony, his form rippling and contorting. The other shadows scattered, fleeing from the radiance that now emanated from me. As the light faded, I found myself standing alone in the middle of an empty field. The carnival had vanished, leaving behind only the faintest whisper of Calliope music on the wind. I thought it was over, but then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. My shadow, cast by the rising sun, was moving independently, mimicking the motions of the carnival creatures I'd encountered. I realized with growing horror that while I had escaped the carnival of shadows, a part of it had come with me. In the days that followed, I tried to convince myself it had all been a vivid nightmare, but the independently moving shadow that now dogged my every step served as a constant reminder of the terrifying truth. I sought help from every source I could think of: priests, psychics, even online forums dedicated to the paranormal. But no one had answers, and those who did believe me were too frightened to offer aid. My shadow began to whisper to me in the dead of night, telling me of the souls still trapped in the carnival of shadows. It urged me to return, to set them free. But I knew it was a trick, a ploy to lure me back into that realm of darkness. As weeks turned into months, I learned to live with my unwanted companion. I avoided going out at night and stayed away from anything that cast strong shadows, but I could feel it growing stronger, more insistent in its demands. Now I'm sharing my story as a warning to others. If you ever come across a carnival that appears only at night, with attractions that seem too fantastical to be real, turn back. Don't let your curiosity get the better of you, as I did. For those of us who have experienced the Carnival of Shadows, there is no true escape. We carry a piece of that darkness with us always, a constant battle between light and shadow. And in the quietest moments, I can still hear the Calliope music, calling me back to that place where nightmares come to life. I've always been fascinated by the bizarre and macabre, so when the carnival rolled into town, I couldn't resist the allure of the sideshow tent. The faded banner promised freaks beyond your wildest imagination, and my curiosity got the better of me. As I stepped inside, the musty air filled my lungs, and the dim lighting cast eerie shadows on the canvas walls. The first act was the elastic woman, her limbs stretching to impossible lengths as she contorted herself into unnatural shapes. Next came the human pincushion, his body riddled with needles and hooks that should have killed him. Each performer was more grotesque than the last, their appearances defying logic and biology. But it was the final act that truly chilled me to the bone. The living corpse lay motionless in a glass coffin, his skin a sickly gray, eyes sunken into his skull. As I leaned in for a closer look, his eyes suddenly snapped open, locking onto mine with an intensity that made my blood run cold. In that moment, I saw something beyond mere showmanship. I saw genuine suffering and a desperate plea for help. Disturbed and unable to shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, I found myself drawn to the back of the tent. The rational part of my mind screamed at me to leave, but a morbid curiosity pulled me deeper into the shadows, unaware of the nightmarish truth I was about to uncover. As I slipped behind the curtain, the carnival sounds faded away, replaced by an oppressive silence. The backstage area was a maze of crates and storage containers, dimly lit by flickering bulbs. I crept forward, my heart pounding in my chest, when a raspy voice called out from the darkness. "Help us," it wheezed. "Please, you have to help us." I spun around to find the elastic woman, her limbs now hanging limp and distorted. Up close, I could see the pain etched on her face, the unnatural stretching of her skin. "We're not freaks," she whispered. "We're prisoners." As my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I saw the other performers huddled in makeshift cages. The human pincushion sobbed quietly, blood oozing from his countless wounds. The living corpse stared at me with sunken eyes, his breath rattling in his chest. The ringmaster, the elastic woman, continued, her voice trembling. "He's not human. He's a demon who feeds on suffering. He cursed us, twisted our bodies into these monstrosities. We're trapped here, forced to perform night after night, our pain fueling his power." I stood there, frozen in horror, as the truth sank in. These weren't sideshow acts. They were victims of some unimaginable evil. I had to help them, to expose this nightmare and bring it to an end. But as I turned to leave, to find help, I came face to face with the ringmaster himself. His eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and his smile was full of sharp, gleaming teeth. "Well, well," he purred, his voice like oil and gravel. "It seems we have a new volunteer for our little show." The ringmaster's hand shot out, impossibly fast, gripping my arm with inhuman strength. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. His touch seemed to drain the very life from my body. He dragged me deeper into the maze of the backstage area, past cages filled with other twisted creatures I hadn't seen in the show. "You humans are all the same," he hissed, his breath hot against my ear. "So curious, so eager to peek behind the curtain. But once you see the truth, you can never go back." We stopped in front of a large mirror, its surface rippling like water. The ringmaster forced me to look at my reflection, and I watched in horror as my features began to change. My skin bubbled and stretched, my bones cracking as they reformed. I tried to struggle, to break free, but it was useless. "Welcome to the family," the ringmaster laughed, his voice echoing in my mind. "You'll make a fine addition to our little troupe." The pain was excruciating, unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I could feel my body warping, transforming into something inhuman. In the mirror, I saw my new reality. a grotesque fusion of man and beast, my limbs elongated and my face distorted beyond recognition. As the transformation completed, the ringmaster released me. I collapsed to the ground, my new body foreign and agonizing. "Rest up," he sneered. "The show must go on and you have a big debut tomorrow night." Days blurred into nights as I was forced to perform in the sideshow, my body contorting in ways that defied nature. The pain never subsided. If anything, it grew worse with each passing show. I could feel the ringmaster feeding off my suffering, growing stronger as I grew weaker. But in the quiet moments between performances, huddled in our cages, the other freaks and I whispered plans of escape. We knew the ringmaster's power was tied to the carnival itself. If we could somehow destroy it, we might break the curse. It was the human pincushion who finally discovered the ringmaster's weakness. "The mirror," he rasped one night, his voice barely audible. "It's the source of his power. Break it, and we might have a chance." We waited for our moment, biding our time until the carnival was at its busiest. As the crowds swelled and the ringmaster was distracted by the influx of new victims, we put our plan into action. The elastic woman used her stretched limbs to create a distraction, while the living corpse and I slipped away to find the mirror. We knew we only had one chance. If we failed, our punishment would be unimaginable. As we approached the rippling surface of the cursed object, I could feel its dark energy pulsing. The ringmaster's furious roar echoed through the tent as he realized what we were doing. We had mere seconds before he would be upon us, ready to inflict horrors beyond our worst nightmares. With the last of my strength, I hurled myself at the mirror. The glass shattered with an otherworldly shriek, and a blinding light erupted from within. The ringmaster's agonized howl filled the air as his power began to unravel. The carnival itself seemed to come alive, the tents collapsing and the rides twisting into impossible shapes. I felt a searing pain throughout my body as the curse began to lift, my bones and flesh reforming into their original state. When the chaos finally subsided, I found myself lying on an empty field. The carnival was gone, leaving no trace of its existence. Around me, the other former freaks were stirring, their bodies returned to normal. We were free, but the scars of our experience would remain with us forever. As we helped each other to our feet, I knew that none of us would ever look at a carnival the same way again. In the years since that nightmarish experience, I've dedicated my life to exposing similar supernatural horrors. I know now that the world is full of dark secrets and malevolent entities hiding just beneath the surface of our reality. So the next time you visit a carnival or a sideshow, take a moment to really look at the performers. Are their smiles genuine, or do you see a flicker of pain in their eyes? And if you hear a whispered plea for help from behind the curtain, remember my story. For in the world of the bizarre and the grotesque, the line between entertainment and torment can be terrifyingly thin.